For too many years, families of children with devastating illnesses have felt helpless as they watch their child suffer. Today, they're taking matters into their own hands and finally finding relief treating their child with cannabis. These are their stories.
Welcome to another episode of Love and Cannabis. I am Nina Simmons.
And I am Osiris Steffen.
And we are the proud parents of Aiden Steffen.
Well, hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hello, hello.
So tonight we have a special guest.
Yes, I'm really excited about this guest. We met a while back at we both were panelists for Women Grow. And we were there sharing our experiences with cannabis. Her name is Jessie Gill. She is the founder of Marijuana Mommy.
Yay, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate the invite.
Oh, yes, we're so excited to have you. So how's it going?
It's pretty good. You know, it's strange. The world is so different now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in
very
Jersey, right?
unpredictable. I am, yeah. So just like you guys in New York, it's a mess here. You know, it's funny because, you know, you read about other places that are just enacting these rules with masks and stuff. And for here, it's been required for so long. It just seems crazy. Yeah,
exactly. So my family is from South Carolina, and now we were about to make a trip down there, but now they're in the reverse as us.
Yes, right?
So I'm like, what? I was going down there for some relief from all of this.
And now they enacted those travel restrictions. So
exactly. So now, so I'm like, what?
Crazy.
And then now they're saying you have to wear a mask. So I'm like, huh? Like,
so I know it's great. I think we're going to see that a lot where it hasn't been, you know, an issue. People haven't been guarded enough yet. I think we'll see it. Some influxes in cases, but hopefully they take steps and get it under control.
Exactly. So what I also forgot to introduce, Jessie, she's also a member of the American Cannabis Nurse Association. So tell us a little bit about that and your involvement in that.
Oh, it's such a fantastic organization. So the American Cannabis Nurses Association. So I'm a registered nurse.
Yes.
And that's actually how I started and got into cannabis. But the American Cannabis Nurses Association is a nonprofit professional organization for nurses. And we're a national organization. We have nurses all across the country with a very special focus on cannabis therapeutics. So, you know, it's a community that is really engaged in the advocacy and a fight for legalization, and really engaged in the medicinal aspects of the cannabis plant and the utilization of it. So a lot of us, you know, we serve in a lot of different capacities individually, the members. But the organization, one of our biggest goals in the organization is to really have cannabis therapeutics accepted as an official subspecialty of nursing.
Nice.
So just as we have like wound care nurses and cardiac nurses and, you know, all OB nurses, we have so many different subspecialties, and we would love to see cannabis therapeutics. And I think it's going to take a long time to get there. The organization has been working on it, you know, for a decade. We just had our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yes. So it's been amazing. I'm proud to be a board member. You know, we have an awesome board and an incredible executive committee who's been really leading a lot of growth in the organization. So it's been really cool. It's amazing to watch things transform in the medical community.
So how, a nurse in a whole, how do you feel, what's the census of most nurses now with the use of cannabis, like for medicinal purposes?
That's a good question. And it really depends on where you go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here, us on the East Coast, we still have very limited access.
Yes.
It's still very, very restricted, well, at least here in the tri-state area still. But hopefully that changes soon. But so the nurses here, or medical professionals in general, are fairly, uneducated. They don't teach it in nursing school at all. There's nothing taught in nursing school or medical school about cannabis or even the endocannabinoid system.
Wow.
So yeah, not a thing. That they don't even mention it. Now they're starting to add it to programs, but it's such an essential system. So if nurses don't go outside of that, and aren't exposed to education beyond that, they never learn it. And here, there's still a stigma with cannabis use, and a lot of people will not report it to their doctors or nurses, so it's not discussed. So I think as legalization changes, and that kind of naturally happens, as places legalize, it becomes more people start talking about it, and slowly that education builds because you have no choice. You're going to encounter patients who use cannabis after it's legal. You have to know about it. You have to learn about it. So, over on the West Coast, there's a lot more awareness and a lot more education, and thus there's more acceptance. But we're just starting to really work on that on the East Coast, and it's been great. The vast majority of healthcare professionals have a very positive response, and they do want to learn about it, and they have heard really amazing things about it. So fortunately, there's always those people who really believe it's evil and will never see anything different unless they experience it themselves. But for the most part, I think we are seeing change.
So I brought this up because of we had a bill and we had a bill in place.
I know, a beautiful bill.
Yeah, because we hit a roadblock when Aiden went to preschool, and he needed his 12 p.m. dose of CBD oil, and we thought there wouldn't be a problem. I guess, unbeknownst to us, we had his medicine bag. At that time, he had a 1-to-1 nurse, and he was taking other pharmaceutical meds, and he was taking his CBD, and then he had to take CBD at 12. So I just innocently packed the CBD, and the nurses said, okay, what are his meds? And I said, okay, this, and this. And she's like, what is that? I said, the CBD. He gets it at 12. We had a Dr. Shin, a cannabis doctor, prescribe it. He had his medical marijuana card. So I figure, it was all good. It wasn't all good. She did not want to administrate it to him. We then talked to his supervisor from the agency. She said no. We even got to a firm discussion with the New York State Board of Nursing, and we went into this firm back and forth. So basically what it came down to was that no, the nurses could not administer it to him.
It was more like they didn't want to. That's what it's like. They made personal choice.
It does get really complicated of what they can and can't administer, and getting official doctor's orders, and that's one of the challenges with cannabis, and it's all related to the Schedule 1 classification, which is just
basically, yep,
it's ridiculous. But their nurses could have their license removed if there's no bill to protect them, and it's a shame your bill hadn't been passed yet. There have been places that they have passed the bill, and the majority of school nurses are eager to help their students and their patients, and are happy to learn about CBD oil and cannabis in general and administer it. But of course, you have those who are steadfastly against it still, and usually they often cite medical malpractice as the reason that they don't want to do. But we can get medical malpractice. Like I, as a cannabis nurse, have medical malpractice insurance, so I don't know. It's just this dang Schedule 1 classification. It's ridiculous and horrific, and it causes it's why so many patients can be discriminated against still.
Yeah, that's a major issue. And one of the things I found out through a rumor that they've taken parts of the bill itself and amended current laws, and like if it applied to education law or the Department of Health and their guidelines. So if the child has to have received their CBD or their medical marijuana while on campus, they would have a caregiver on campus be able to administer it. So if they're in a nursing home or if they're in some residential treatment center, they can receive it then. So they literally took pieces of the bill itself and just basically amended any current law so they wouldn't have to do the process of, creating a new law.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. That's a very interesting way. So is that in effect?
That's the
now
problem. It's on the books, it's in the papers, but no one's
Yeah.
enforcing it in the school. So the schools are not
That's
aware.
the problem.
The school's not aware. So if the nurse say, you're allowed to have a caregiver on your card. So if the nurse would want to, and it's all up to her or him, they can become the child's caregiver.
That's
the
interesting.
caveat. So they can become the caregiver and therefore able to administer the cannabis in school.
Yeah, that's what we put into the bill. That the schools would be required to put a protocol in place to assign a caregiver.
So a caregiver could be the teacher, or it could be, an
The
aide,
nurse, school
or
nurse.
the school nurse. It's easier for it to be the school nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to be the school nurse. It's silly that it wouldn't be.
So that was the thing, but they would have to create a policy around that so that everybody's aware, and that also that the medicine would be kept inside the nurse's office. So they would have it kept away, just like any medication that a child needs daily.
Right. Yes, of course.
So,
Of
but
it's absurd
politics.
that you guys as parents have to jump through hoops just to get kids medicine, especially when it's so much safer than so many more of the
than what he's
medications
currently
that they are
taking.
administering.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yes.
Totally agree. And that was the upsetting part. It's like you're arguing with these adults about this. It's like, you guys don't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and they don't understand it. A lot of people just don't get it.
Yeah, and that always made me wonder, though, do they even talk about, herbal medicine in medical school or even nursing?
No, very little.
So it's all pharmacology, basically.
Oh, yes. So pharmacology focused, very pharmacology focused. We talk a little bit about holistic healthcare, and of course it varies from program to program. But yeah, no, it's, and they talk about some things like, they briefly go through certain things like probiotics or stuff like that, but not anywhere near even the basics of in-depth.
That's interesting. So share with me, share with us basically, how did you get started in this industry?
Oh, like so many other people, I became a patient first. And I know so many people come as, come into this as a patient or a loved one of a patient who's seen it worked. And I was a hospice nurse and I loved my career. It was amazing. I was so good at it. And I got hurt one day at work and I suffered from a spinal injury. And it damaged like a few discs in my neck and a whole bunch of nerves in my neck and my arm, my throat, and the back of my head. Yeah. And it, for a long time, I was like, I'm going to get better. It's going to be, any day now, I'll just find the next doctor who's going to give me the right medicine or the right treatment. And I started just hunting and I tried everything. I tried every drug they gave me. I tried every treatment option. I tried every holistic treatment option, every oil I could buy or anything, acupuncture, flotation therapy, everything. And nothing helped. And I had major surgery, multi-level spinal fusion in my neck.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I actually got worse from the spinal fusion. And I was just living. It was devastated. I was, they were like, there's nothing else we can do for you. You're palliative, which means you're never going to get better. And you just have to live. And I was taking opiates and Valium around the clock and, tons of other nasty medications. And the side effects were devastating. And somebody suggested cannabis and I thought it was absurd. And I was like, that's like so silly. If morphine can't help me, then a joint's not going to be able to help me. And I was annoyed. I was like, I'm a nurse. I'm a hospice nurse. I'm pain management was my specialty, like comfort. That's what I did every day. And so I was like just blowing it up. And I talked to my mom, and my mom is also a nurse. And she was like, why wouldn't you try this? Like, why wouldn't you look into it?
Wow.
And and she said, she's like, God works in mysterious ways. And I was like, that's
very
like
true.
Really cliche, but okay. And I tried, and, they went with me. My parents took me to my first dispensary appointment. I was really nervous about it, really anxious. I had some experience with cannabis, previously many years earlier, and I didn't have good associations to it.
Yeah.
And so I was so nervous. I was so anxious about it. And, as I had started to read about it and learn about the actual real research, I started getting hopeful. And I'm like, okay, maybe this can help. I'm like, there's actually research out there. This actually is a real thing. And it was that day I tried it that very same day I was able to stop both opiates and Valium, with no problems. Yeah, it was amazing. And so and then later I cut down on all the other pharmaceuticals, and it's been absolutely amazing. And I still have so many challenges, like physically, I still have pain, and I still have a lot of dysfunction. I can't drive, which sucks in New Jersey. But
you need to drive in New Jersey.
So frustrating. Yeah, but cannabis manages it. It helps me manage the pain, and without all of those nasty, horrific side effects that all the pharmaceuticals did. And then I was, after I experienced such, a turnaround. At that point, I was already writing. I was writing about parenting and different things, and health. I was writing a lot about health and family health, and I was like, I just have to start writing about this. I'm like, if this helped me so much, and I, was so opposed to it, I know there are other people out there like me. And like being a nurse, I knew how important it was for healthcare professionals to actually give, actually put their voices to work, and, get the education out there and get the research out there. And that's when, I started Marijuana Mommy, and it's just been growing from there. It's been amazing.
Wow, congrats.
Well, thank you.
So tell the listeners more about this amazing educational platform that you have on Medical Mommy.
Marijuana Mommy.
Marijuana Mommy.
All the M's.
I'm sorry.
It's been, it's great. It started, and it's the goal of Marijuana Mommy, the whole purpose of it is to teach new patients how and why to use cannabis. So that's really a blend of the content that we have up there. It's, there's a lot of informational articles about different things cannabis can help, or different ways CBD oil can help.
Yes.
And then there's more practical things like, product guides, guides to different things like dry herb vaporizers, and then instructional how-tos. And I put a lot of videos up too on my YouTube channel, which is all fed over to Marijuana Mommy. But I do a lot of things like teaching about decarboxylation and the cooking process of cannabis, different things like that.
Yeah, I did see that. Now,
and I also have interviews with amazing people like Nina.
Yes, I was on there.
Yeah, I got to watch that. I didn't even see that video.
Yeah,
it feels like forever ago.
It does.
Right?
I think it was a year ago. It said a year ago. I'm like, I didn't see that. Okay. It's best kept secret, but okay, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, so it's just amazing because I love the way that the website is organized.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's easy to read.
It's really easy to read. If you just you want to know one thing, you can click on that one thing. If you want to know many things, you can click on, and because not many websites, there isn't any websites like that have a stream to a live feed and to YouTube. So that was like when I went on the website, it was very, very informative. And
thank you.
And one of the things that Osiris want to get into is actually starting to make the CBD for Aiden.
Ah, yes. Yes, it's much more economical if you make it yourself.
Exactly, because we're feeling it.
Yes, I can only imagine.
So how did you find this right strain for you? I mean, do you use a specific strain to help you, or is that just different types, or are you even using hybrid? Like, how was it for you to figure out which one works best for you?
Oh, it's such a challenge. And it's really a challenge in New Jersey, too, because we don't have very good access. And I don't think in New York you guys have very good access either.
It's horrible.
No, not really.
So, I mean, it's so challenging. And, I counsel a lot of patients. I'm still a nurse, and with my cannabis background, I help a lot of patients. And that's one of the biggest issues, like finding that consistent access, because patients will find something, it'll work and it'll change their lives, and then all of a sudden you can't get it anymore, and it's devastating. So for me, it was just trial and error. And, there are ways that and tools out there that you can look at, for a long time, we've gone by that sativa indica hybrid terminology. It's not really accurate. And we're kind of moving towards saying more like sedating versus stimulating.
Oh, okay.
So, and, because everything out there is now a hybrid, there's really no true sativas or true indicas left.
Yes.
It's all been bred. And, it's challenging. Another thing we really consider when we start looking at choosing strains is the terpenes in the strain. That can be very, indicative of what's going to work. So if I find a strain that has, certain terpenes, then I can kind of look at, if you look at leafly.com, yes, they changed to that flower module instead of like listing. They used to have like little, it was like the little emojis for each strain. Now it's a flower, and the flower is very representative of the cannabinoid profile and the terpene profile of the plant. So you can kind of find things that have a similar flower, and in theory, that should be very similar to the strain that, you're comparing it to. Now, unfortunately, I mean, we're talking about a plant here, and it varies a lot. Even, from crop to crop, the terpenes or the cannabinoid profile of a plant can be totally different.
So
and even the same crop from, one corner of a greenhouse to another corner of a greenhouse can be very different. So it is challenging. I really believe strongly that patients should be allowed to grow their own cannabis at home, and we don't have that law. Yeah, and I know you guys don't either. It's so frustrating.
It is. It's the consistency that we tend to have a challenge with. A couple of times we were dealing with certain CBD companies, to get for Aiden. For a couple of months it's working. Then all of a sudden we just noticed that there's a change. Now the seizures is an uptick. And then we question them, say, hey, what happened? What you guys changed? They're like, oh, which one were you using? And we point out the specific product or brand. And they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have that strain anymore. We ran out, so we changed it. I'm like, you can't do that. You got to let us know.
Yeah, especially for a child.
That's horrible.
So
that's so terrible. I know people don't even realize how significant that it can be.
Oh, yeah. Even with the ingredients, too, because I think we were using one particular product, and they added emulsifier in it, like a lectin oil.
Oh, my gosh.
So
and that triggered his seizures.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's one of the challenges with, again, this whole schedule and classification and the lack of regulation. There's no FDA oversight over CBD at all. People can put whatever they want on the bottle. They can change it at will and not even tell anyone, because there's no laws regulating them. And it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there in CBD land. And, testing is so important. We talk about that all the time, but everybody's testing and everybody says, oh, we're third-party testing. But a lot of places are only testing like the cannabinoid profile, and they aren't testing the terpenes, and they aren't testing for toxins or molds or all of the other, or even pesticides. So it's so challenging, because in order to know how safe a product is and how reliable it is, you really have to look at the details of that testing. Like, you really have to look for, full panel testing. And most consumers have no idea to ask for that. I mean, it's very complicated. And when they do ask for it, they have no idea what they're looking at, when you get the reports. We need that oversight eventually.
Now, one question, don't you think that if we do get that oversight, that it'll be over-regulated, and it'll almost seem as if they're just going to narrow it down to where only those with licenses, even medical licenses, be able to sell medical marijuana?
That's always, of course, the fear. But I don't think, we have states that have good oversight and have good regulations, and it hasn't been, a bad thing. Or if you look at Vermont's laws, they're looking to really, get tighter in what they allow as far as CBD testing in their agricultural department and their hemp testing in Vermont. And it's fantastic what they're trying to implement. So I think making regulations like that across the board could be really, really beneficial. But you're right. We have to keep that in mind. We have to consider it, and we have to not let that happen, because that's always a possibility, even without even without the oversight, it's a possibility that it could just go that way.
Yeah, because with us, with the terpenes, bringing up the topic of the terpenes, and there were some articles said that some terpenes, for example, are anti-inflammatory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been that entourage effect.
Absolutely.
That was helping the whoever you might say with seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And then we noticed that certain batches didn't have certain terpenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's that, and these are companies that, you know, we trust and do all the testing, but they can't, like you said, they can't control. This is a natural plant.
Yes.
They can't control the batches sometimes.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Now, for you, which would you prefer, outdoor grow or indoor?
I don't think I have too much of a preference as far as outdoor, indoor. I do like soil grown as opposed to hydroponic.
Okay.
I like real living soil. But that's really the only preference that I have as far as it. I think there's a lot of benefits on both. You know, if you have the climate to grow outside, it's amazing. But a lot of, you know, we don't have for full year round here.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. We got to do it indoor. Now, how's your family embraced you in this new path, your career?
You know,
like the kids are like, hey, my mom has marijuana. We're going to hang out.
Yes. It's always nerve wracking, right? Yeah. You know, and it was like really a concern for me about with my kids. Like, do I tell them, like when I became a patient, which has been so long now, like it's been 5 years, six years, something like that. So at the time, I guess it's been 5 years. My son was in 3rd grade and my daughter was in college, and it was really scary. Like, do you tell them? Do you talk about it? And, you know, eventually I knew that I had to tell them for so many reasons. And like, you know, first of all, I didn't want them finding it or smelling it and getting scared that I was doing something illegal. I wanted them to know that I was following all laws and rules. And, you know, I also wanted to prepare them because I knew eventually they would learn the stigma. You know, eventually in school, they're going to have a teacher. It's like marijuana is going to kill you, and you know,
gateway.
Yes, the gateway drug.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, and thankfully I did sit them down and talk to them, and they were good. My daughter was like she was just starting college, so she was she's a very unique young lady, and she's never been, you know, into alcohol or drugs, but she was like, okay, Mom, whatever's going to help you. And with her, she saw the results right away. So she witnessed the change. Like I went from really, really bad to much, much better. And so for her, it was just like, you know, easy acceptance because of witnessing that. And with my son, he just didn't know, you know, he didn't know what it was. So he was like, all right, this is, now he's more uncomfortable with it. Now he's in middle school and he does struggle with it. He is
really?
He is, you know, it's more, unfortunately, he has people in his life who are not, you know, say mean things about it and are just, you know, perpetuate that false stigma. So he worries about judgment, and he worries about that a lot. That's like, sad. Are people going to judge me? Yeah, it is very sad. And, you know, I think by the time he's in college, he'll be over that. But and my daughter's like always like, oh, my mom's, you know, here's my mom's website. She thinks it's hilarious. So
that's
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
So going through this, I mean, what was like the biggest challenges you had to face? I mean, did you have a lot of support as you were going through the transition of coming off the opiates and all that and moving into cannabis? You know, because I know trying to work and trying to juggle all these things, you probably was at your wit's end, you know, also taking care of your family.
Yeah. It was really bad. You know, I wasn't working at all. I mean, I was writing a little bit at that point when I went on cannabis, but I was very disabled. I wasn't functioning. Yeah. It was a really, really hard time. So, and then I also have history of ulcerative colitis, and I ended up getting like a really bad colitis episode. Yes. So I had already, it was kind of fortuitous timing because I was already waiting for my card when that all happened, and I was starting to decrease the opiates and the Valium and all of the medications because I was, you know, vomiting nonstop. So I was kind of already reducing my dosages. So for me, it was very simple to come off of opiates. And also, I say this often, I'm very, very fortunate so fortunate in the fact that opiates don't give me that euphoria. They don't give me that good feeling that so many people get from them. They make me really sick. And I never liked taking them. And that for me is a blessing because, you know, that's really what causes more people to take them, that good euphoria feeling. And for me, I never really got that. So it was like easy for me to say goodbye because they had always made me so sick. But, you know, I am so fortunate in my support system. Like my parents live in the same town as me and they are amazing and, you know, always there for me for everything. So, and my sister lives in the same town. So, yeah, I'm very, very, very blessed with an amazing support system.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. For us, when we started using cannabis oil for our son, it was kind of somewhat taboo with our family. Like, is he gonna get high? Is like all the stigma questions. Like, and so you had to live like in isolation, and it's like I don't want anybody else to know, so we're just gonna stay to ourselves.
Oh, that's so hard, and that isolation makes it even harder. It's such a tough topic.
It is. It's kind of stressful. I mean, for the fact that, okay, you know, we have the stigma that he's going to be using it, we're using it. And it's just like, okay, we're kind of to be like the black sheep of the family now. You know, it's like, oh, here they come. When did they, they sniff you and like, do they smell like marijuana? It's like, no. Your son's eyes is a little beady. Is he high?
Oh, I hate
no,
that.
he's tired. You know, it's like, he's tired. It's like, dude, he's tired. He's been up all night, seizures, you know? Like, cut us some slack.
Man.
Yeah, they do. But like, well, the worst thing could be what? You could be cranky, angry, or just physically ill. But it's like, you're just happy, you're smiling. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful plant, beautiful experience. How are they now? Are they more accepting now, seeing its results?
Oh, yes.
It's funny. Awesome. They were sending us emails. They were sending us clips about cannabis in the news. You know,
like, we already know this, but okay, thank you for sending this to us.
Yeah, like, we've been telling you this for like a year or so now. Okay, thanks.
I had the same. So I had some, family or friends who weren't very accepting in the beginning, who thought it was out of my mind.
Yes.
When I started, they were supportive of me being a patient, but less supportive of my very public sharing about the information. And yeah, same thing, sending me stuff later. I was like, oh, well, it's just great that they turn around like that. And then they start looking for help, right? Like, hey, what should I try?
Exactly. If we're getting that, like a little, like on the text, can I talk to you about something? Sure.
Awesome.
I have pain, or I what can I get? Like, oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah, I'm interested, and I mean, but just between us, it's
legal,
right? It's like, and you could be in the car with them alone. They want to whisper. I'm like, there's nobody around.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah, it's like it's open now.
They think it's like some type of. We just let it be and just laugh. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. And I remember being there. I remember being that scared person wanting to whisper. So I get it.
Like the phone's a wiretap.
I remember when we got our first CBD. When Aiden first got seizures, they were not shipping to New York.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our aunt from South Carolina ship us some CBD oil from a company called Mental Harmony. And we were so nervous. Like, I'm like, I hope they don't open the package. Like, it was like I had to pick it up from the post office. It was like we were
crazy,
right?
Yeah,
it wasn't easy. We were nervous,
That's so crazy. Yeah, I would have been too. I mean, if they're not shipping it here, that alone gives you that little bit of fear and connotation that maybe you could get in trouble with it.
Now, the clients that you deal with, how hesitant, or if they're more interested in using cannabis, I mean, do you have like a ratio, an idea, like for every 10 customers you run into, like 3 are really going in, they want to do it, and then the other 7 or 6 are just like, I'm not sure, I still need to know some more information, I'm kind of hesitant, I'm scared?
Most of the time, by the time people get to me, they're really hopeful, and they're really what people are most looking for is somebody to do exactly what my mom did for me. And that's actually really one of the origins of the whole Marijuana Mommy site. It's really designed to guide people to hold your hand. And that's what they're looking for, somebody to hold their hands, to tell them that it's going to be okay, that it's not a big scary drug like they were told, that look, it helps. And to show them, like, here it is helping. So most people are just looking for that reassurance, and then direction. You know, they believe that it helps, and then, but what? Because there's so many strains, and there's so many different products available, and there's so many different types of ways to consume them. So yeah, but I mean, I still get tons of people just looking for information, but you know, it's really out there and really easy to find nowadays.
Oh, that's true. Now, I saw on your website that I guess you're recommending that it's better to vape versus smoke.
Oh yes, dry herb vape. Dry herb. That's
okay.
the caveat.
Not the oil.
Not the oil.
Say it again.
Dry herb vaping. Dry herb vaping is better than smoking cannabis, but that's just for dry herb, for dry herb vaporizing. Because when you vape dry herb, you're cutting down on a lot of the carcinogens, and of course it depends. It depends on the actual specific device that you end up using. But, you know, it's really, you cut down on a lot of the carcinogens that the combustion causes. Now, vaping the oils, that's a whole other topic.
Really? Do tell.
Yeah, so that...
like, do tell. Because I have like 2 in my pocket right now.
That's so fun. I do use some vapes. I use them very sparingly. Like my favorite is dry herb, dry flower. But you have to be careful about what they're putting in the vapes. Like if it's really just pure cannabis oil, then that's a lot better of a choice than something with additives. Yeah. But a lot of places are, depending on where you are, they are putting additives in their vapes. Here in New Jersey, they use mostly terpenes, which personally, I really hesitate where they just kind of add them without a true idea of the ratio to the cannabinoid, and it kind of ends up tasting like, flavory and strong. And it's not the taste, but even in if you look at like homeopathy, if you look at like using essential oils, we are very conservative when we administer essential oils. And you don't directly inhale them, you smell them, you put them around you, and if you put them on your body, you dilute them first. You don't put them directly on. So I have I worry about the amounts of terpenes that are being inhaled by people. There's also just the slight risk of inhaling little bits of the actual oil, depending on the quality of the vape cartridge itself. And inhaling those tiny little bits of oil into your lungs, it can cause something called lipoid pneumonia. Mm-hmm. And that can be very, very dangerous. It's lipoid pneumonia. It's a type of pneumonia that develops like when you inhale oil-based particles. So if you were to inhale water or something, you're going to choke and cough, but eventually you're going to get rid of it. It's water, it's water-based. If you inhale oil, there's a possibility that oil could sit there. Your lungs aren't made to clear out oil or fatty substances. And that is a great place for bacteria to grow in that warm, moist environment in your lungs. And, it causes a type of pneumonia that is very difficult to treat.
Wow. Didn't know that. Because that was the most recent issue, what was it, last year, when everybody was starting to have those, popcorn lungs, they would call it, and all those issues?
That's something different. Yes, that is something different. That's EVALI. So that's the e-cigarette and vape associated. That's the severe. Yes. That's why illicit market cartridges are so dangerous, because they might have additives that can kill you. The dispensaries, the additives, we don't know how healthy or safe they are, but we don't think they're going to kill you. But, if you buy something from the illegal market, I always tell people, like, if you're purchasing off the illegal market, stick to flower. Try to find somebody that where it's coming from, that where it's being grown, that what pesticides or fertilizers are being used on it, but really try to avoid processed illegal cannabis products because you don't really know what's in them.
Makes sense. So basically, old school, the flower. Go to the flower.
Old school, that's right.
Well, you also with the flower. I mean, for pretty much of like using a vaporizer versus, let's say, a sheet of paper or a what would you call it? A tobacco wrap. And I've also seen hemp wrap now.
Yes, they've gotten very popular.
Yes, and
right?
I guess for people that think that gives it an added
benefit.
Yeah, an added benefit. Let's use that word.
Like I think it's also like an environmental stance. When people choose hemp is very, easy to grow and can replace paper and plastic and everything in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think eventually we're going to get there, but I don't know if these other industries are ready to give up their title or their position.
Definitely. They're nowhere. They're going to fight the whole way.
Oh, yes. They've been fighting for over 100 years. They're not ready for anything new right now. Now, is your demographics of people that you treat, are there any difference between race, age, sex?
Yes. Not so much sex. It's pretty evenly divided among sex. The people who come to me for direct counseling tends to be older people, and a lot of times tends to be like the families of the older people who want them to be educated and guided and helped. And a lot of times what people need the most is really somebody to review their medications and to look at any possible interactions that could occur between their cannabis or their CBD and their pharmaceuticals. So yeah, it tends to be an older population. Younger people tend to just have less of that hesitancy towards approaching it and are more easily just happy to listen to an educated bud tender, so.
Like that term.
Bud tender. Now, when it comes to the products that they tend to purchase, is it more on the flower side, edibles, especially with the elderly?
Yeah, that's one of our other challenges in New Jersey. We don't have very good access to many products here. It depends. Every dispensary has flower. So you can get, every dispensary is supposed to have flower. Sometimes we have dry shelves, but you should be able to buy flower.
Yeah, New York too.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. Some dispensaries are selling vape carts. A lot of them are. And some of them, each dispensary manufactures their own. So some of the products are good. I'll shop at a couple places, but not everywhere. And then some of them have they sell it as a topical because legally in New Jersey they can't sell it as an edible, but it's food grade infused oil, so everybody buys it to use as an edible. But it's really expensive, and it makes more sense to just buy your flower and cook it at home. It makes way more sense to do that in New Jersey. So it really depends on the person and their access. Like the older patients, you're right, need edibles. There's like one or two places that are selling lozenges now. We just had a new place that opened that's selling gummies, but it's like you have to drive like hours to get there to get it. So
yeah.
It almost sounds like you're in Russia, right? Or like back in the communist Russia back in the days. It's like one size fits all, and this is all we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So last year we went to Albany to lobby for this specifically. We went
New York.
For New York. Sorry, we went to New York to lobby to have more dispensaries. To be able to have more of them, so people be able to have access to their medicine.
But it's a tricky thing, though. They only gave out 10 licenses in New York.
So we were lobbying for more licenses because to have 10 in New York, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. But the problem is that it was only those specific companies. So you're saying 5 companies got 10 dispensaries among them, and they're the only ones going to be able to expand. It's not as if they're going to be taking on new companies.
Yeah, that's terrible.
The multi-state licenses.
So terrible.
Yeah, so it's almost like they're monopolizing in a way, but that's another story in itself. Now, are you?
We have that too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we only have I think 12 dispensaries in the whole state. Just a couple have just recently opened. For the longest time, it was like 9 dispensaries in the entire state. So there are people that are driving more than an hour to get their medication. It's crazy.
No, that's not right.
No,
it's not right.
But
that was the same thing that was happening here too in New York.
Same thing in New York.
Bonkers.
And that's why we went to lobby for that. It's ridiculous.
It's
I remember
crazy.
this one woman, 3 hours. She would travel 3 hours back and forth to get her medicine.
heartbreaking. When it's a plant that could grow easily in your own backyard.
Yes, but then that means you have the power to make your own decision and treat yourself. Can't have that.
Right.
What do you think this is,
Right.
democracy?
Right.
There's not power to the people in this country.
Only power to a couple people.
Now, for you, how hard was it for you to get your license or even get your business up and running? Because you do have a retail store as well as your online, correct?
But no, I only have an online store.
Okay.
So also, so in addition to Marijuana Mommy, I have an online retail shop called Pretty Pipe Shop. And that's, I sell pretty pipes. So it's all pretty glass pieces. That's been really challenging with COVID because all of our pieces are imported. And it's been very, very challenging bringing items into the country. It's been terrible. So we haven't been able to get product. Our shelves are bare. We've got like a few things trickling in and they're selling really well, fortunately. There's always a demand for affordable pretty glass pieces. So that's been great. That started well after Marijuana Mommy, and it started by just a need. One of my best posts for a long time on my site was about bongs that were being sold, and it was like a list of bongs that one of my affiliates was selling. And I don't know if you guys know, you probably know, I'm sure you know how affiliate marketing works. You
Yes.
list the product and somebody buys it and you make a commission. So that was like one of my best posts, my most profitable. And then that place stopped selling the pieces. So I was like, I was like, oh no. And I was looking for somewhere else that had it and I couldn't find anything. And then my daughter really pushed me. She's like, you should just start your own little shop and just, sell it. And it started as just drop shipping. And I was doing just drop shipping and then eventually started getting inventory. And yeah, it just really, really worked well with Marijuana Mommy. And Marijuana Mommy, that was pretty easy too. That was just, not easy, that was just very, very gradual. It was just, piece by piece.
That's awesome. I like that. So all this is on you. So you've been basically doing all this by yourself.
100%.
Wow, give it
And
to
raising
you.
2 kids by yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow.
Superwoman. It's more power to you. And happy
I
belated
have
Mother's
awesome.
Day too.
Oh, thank you. Happy belated Mother's and Father's Day to you guys.
Yes.
Thank you. Champion. Now, does your daughter think about possibly joining you in this adventure?
No, she has no desire. She
I can't pass this legacy down, right?
no, not to her. She is she's very academic. She's a engineer. She actually
Wow.
she just graduated with her master's in computer science engineering.
Congratulations.
And
I
thank
saw
you.
the post.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
wonderful.
I'm very proud of her. So she's got an amazing career that she's working on and is just a really, really remarkable, inspiring human. She constantly inspires me. So I don't see her joining me in this industry ever. More likely that she'll be planning for SpaceX to go to Mars or something like
Nice.
That's awesome. We could use that.
that. Right?
So do you have anything lined up in the coming months? I mean, now that we're on phase 2 of reopening, have you plans to travel or, interviews?
No. I've been staying put, and we were talking about this before, the expo in New York.
Yes.
I believe
It's
I'm
October 1st
on
to
the
the 3rd.
schedule. Yes, I believe I'm scheduled to speak if the schedule still remains as it was before COVID.
Yeah, it should be still the same.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. I haven't gotten any notification that's changed, so that's still on board.
Yeah, we have some awesome nursing conferences coming up, and they have the first one we have scheduled for was the Cannabis Nurse Network Conference, which is another awesome cannabis nurse specific organization, and that was changed to a virtual program in September. And then we have another one scheduled that's supposed to be in New Mexico in December. And I don't know that we're in the talks about making it virtual as well. So many people are scared to travel.
That's the thing. Yeah. I don't know.
So your patients, I mean, they're able to drive to you, so if they need to. Or are you just doing pretty much consultations over the phone?
I am all virtual. Yes.
All virtual.
Yes, I have a
that works
virtual
for you.
platform. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Yeah, we have there's so many amazing services now. So we have like a HIPAA secured platform that patients can just log in and they wait in a virtual waiting room and then
Nice.
call them in. Yeah, it's amazing.
So much for the
It's
human
wild.
touch. That's
Right.
oh my next question, do you treat also children? I mean, as you said, majority of your clientele is elderly. Do you have children as well that you treat?
Yeah, I do. I work with pediatric patients as well. I don't use the word treat. That would be more of like a doctor.
Yeah, okay, no, we don't
That's
treat.
not my role. But yes,
Consult.
I do. I do work with pediatric patients as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's another, that can be another challenging one. And especially depending on the conditions that the child is, dealing with. A lot of times there's all those pharmaceuticals that we have to look at as well.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things I noticed was that, especially for our case, that we didn't wait that long. We didn't have that hesitation. Like, okay, well, let's listen to the doctors. Let's try all these drugs. Let's try, go on for years and years before we say, oh, you know what? Let's try CBD.
That's amazing that you guys had that insight. Aiden is so fortunate for you to have that.
Yeah, we noticed that too. It was like within the first 2 months of him being diagnosed that we actually jumped on board and just said, okay, CBD.
Because
amazing.
Because he was on his second medication, and then they were, you know how it goes. They
increase.
They increase it to the max, and then they don't. The funny thing with epilepsy, they don't take it away. They just add on.
We're too scared. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And they just want to build and build. But I remember he had such a bad reaction with Keppra. Like the kid had a nervous breakdown. All he would do was just wake up and just cry for no reason for like an hour. So we're like,
gosh.
That's it, done. And so we were glad. One of the things is that with your patients, you help them through the dosing, because that was one of the biggest issues that we had in the beginning, because we really didn't know how much to dose, especially based on his weight, based on the potency of the CBD. We were like still, hesitant to increase, decrease. It was like, that cat and mouse game of trying to find that sweet spot.
It is. And, it is, even with my patients, it is that same game. And it's probably the same things that you guys naturally did with Aiden on how to figure out his dose. You have to be self-aware. And that's what we do. We start, depending on their other medications, depending on their history, depending on their conditions, we start at a starting dose, and then they gradually increase it depending on where they feel, how they feel. And depending, one of the biggest challenges is getting people to self-reflect. And, you have to, I always encourage people to journal, like write down how you're feeling, what symptoms if you're having pain, is it 0 to 10? How bad is it? Write it down before you take your medication, and then write it down afterwards. And then also that it's so important to track things like the strain. I mean, that can really impact the dose as well. Like, one strain, you might only need, 3 milligrams of, another strain, you might need 6. So it is challenging. And I think, a lot of people, and this is especially true in the healthcare industry, among medical professionals, we're used to that. Tell me what number to take and how often to take it, and I will be better. Like, tell me to take 2 pills and go to sleep. That's what I want. And it doesn't work like that for cannabis. Like, people have to get in touch with themselves. They have to be able to self-reflect, or they have to have a caregiver who's able to do that for them. And that's like what Aiden was lucky to have you guys to be able to naturally do for him. Because that can sometimes take some education. Like, you have to observe, see how they are, see how they react.
Yeah, a lot of sleepless nights.
I can't imagine what you guys went through.
I think I had friends or family members that were interested, and they stopped because I think, just like what you said, they're thinking, is this going to be like this easy process where they take, a couple of drops and bam, they're cured or whatever. They have no more symptoms. Yeah. And it doesn't work that way. And, the patience that you need sometimes.
Yes.
And it could be tough. And the thing is, there are some people that they get relief like right away, There
are.
And that's the thing. And everybody you hope to be in that percentage.
You pray.
Yeah.
Pray.
But sometimes, for Aiden, we thought, you always want to be like, they said there's 10% of kids with epilepsy that will get 100% seizure freedom from this. And we always pray that that's going to be your child. But then again, it's a small percentage.
Right. I know what you mean. And I hear you. That's one of the things I always tell patients. Like when we start talking about different cultivars or different strains, I'm always like, you have to try different ones. You have to try a few. They're like, what do you mean? Why do I have to try all these? And I'm like, and I'm like, well, how many pain medications did you try? Because I tried dozens. None of them worked. Like, I know you didn't just try Tylenol and then come over to cannabis. So you kind of have to.
That's so true.
Crazy. Yeah, but people don't think about it. And then the expense is frustrating too, especially in Jersey, because it's like so expensive and you can only buy an eighth. That's the smallest. And yes, an eighth, and it's like $50 an eighth. It's like it's ridiculous. Yeah.
How long is that gonna last someone who's in like in extreme pain?
Oh, it's not lasting very long at all. So
that would explain why the black market still exists.
Oh, it is. It is thriving in New Jersey. And you know what? So thriving. And thank God for it. Thank God for the people who are brave enough. Because like here in New Jersey, when a shelf is bare, we have had many periods where our dispensaries didn't have product. And how do you have a patient who's dependent on cannabis and then say, sorry, we don't have anything to sell you? And and then also in the time of, the quarantines, we had a terrible time here getting access. A lot of our dispensaries, they were deemed essential, but they shut down because they had COVID infections within the employees and had to disinfect. We had a lot of changes in access. There were people waiting for 6 hours for their medication, 6 hours in line to get their medication with no bathroom access. Crazy. So it's been, it's really, really challenging.
Now, with your pages, do you notice, do you also discuss diets? Like, does dieting play a role, like their eating habits?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. And so does exercise, and so does sleep. Sleep is so important. I talk a lot about inflammation, and living an anti-inflammatory life. And that means, avoiding a lot of, people can still live and eat and enjoy things, but it means avoiding a lot of processed food. So I always tell people, don't buy cookies, bake your own cookies at home, use whole grain flour, use unbleached sugar, use natural whole ingredients. And, but it is challenging, and people do need to move. That's another really important aspect, because we have a whole lymph system, and we never talk about that. We don't learn a lot about that in nursing or medical school either. When you think about the blood pumping through the body, it's pumped. There's an actual pump that pumps the heart. But when you have a lymph fluid, in all your lymph nodes and in every muscle, there's lymph fluid, and it carries a lot of important, neurotransmitters and endocannabinoids as well. And, there is no natural pump for the lymph system. There is only a skeletal muscle pump. So you have to pump your muscles in order to pump your lymph fluid. And really to have that proper circulation, you have to, get exercise. And it doesn't have to be jogging marathons or anything, but stretching or anything. People have to move their bodies. It's so important.
So this quarantine, basically this lockdown and quarantine is going to be setting people up to be ill later on.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on your habits. I don't know. I've been more active than usual in quarantine because my anxiety makes me do yoga and walk every day. I can't take
it depends on the person. Yeah, because there's a lot of workout videos they can do.
Well, I mean, a lot of people have been gaining weight since they've been on lockdown.
That's it all depends on the individual. Yeah. But yeah, it is.
And the mindset.
A lot of anxiety, and we worry about that too. And the influx in patients who are going to suffer anxiety-related disorders because of what we're enduring, and especially post-traumatic stress syndrome, especially among our healthcare professionals and what they are enduring. It is devastating in hospitals. It is really, really, really hard. I can't even tell you how many of my friends and family who are nurses. It's really, really devastating.
It's devastating. My friend said sometimes she comes home and cries.
Yes, so many. I can't imagine.
So basically, we could predict that cannabis is going to be very much necessary in the coming months once things open full.
Very, very, very much necessary. More necessary than ever. It is so needed right now.
It's harvesting time too. Everybody's going to be harvesting, so I don't know how much is going to be available.
right?
This is too much. But oh my God, it's been so informative. I want to say thank you. And if people wanted to reach out to you and get some more information and talk to you, how would they do that?
Oh, you can visit me at marijuanamommy.com, and you can email me at jessie@marijuanamommy.com, or you can find me on social media. I'm all over. I'm Marijuana Mommy. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this
Oh, thank you guys.
interview. So informative.
Thank you, Super Mom. Call you Super Mom.
Thank you.
If that's all right.
Thank you. I admire you guys and all of your work. So thank you, because you've been fighting for, not only your son, but for the kids of so many. And I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome. But you're also an inspiration because, I grew up in a single mom, so I understand what it takes. And for you to do what you did and to come as far as you have, man, it's amazing. Just completely amazing.
Story.
Bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Well, thank you again for joining us, and hope to have you again, just to see how you're doing, just following up.
Absolutely. Sounds fun.
All right. Take care. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. Great weekend.
You too. You too. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in another episode of
Love and Cannabis.
I'm Osiris Stephens.
And I'm Nina Simmons.
Be strong.
And stay empowered.